Sometimes the most powerful weapons aren't forged in iron or carried by mighty soldiers. Sometimes they're humble tools, placed in the hands of those no one would ever expect, at precisely the moment history demands it. Today we journey into a story rarely told, the story of Jael, a woman whose quiet courage brought down a ruthless oppressor and altered the fate of a nation. So stay with us to the end, and if you find meaning here, consider subscribing to Holy Tales, where we uncover timeless stories that still speak into our lives today. For 20 agonizing years, Israel lived under the suffocating grip of King Jabin of Canaan. His warlord Sisera was the terror behind the throne, commanding an army armed with 900 iron chariots, weapons of unstoppable brutality in that age. Villages lay silent. Travelers abandoned the highways, taking twisted paths through rocky hills just to avoid Sisera's patrols. Farmers watched their harvests burn or be seized by foreign soldiers. Daughters and wives lived in constant dread of who might come riding down the road next. In the Songs of Israel, these days would later be remembered with haunting words. Village life ceased. It ceased in Israel until I, Deborah, arose. When every ounce of human hope was spent, the people finally did what desperate people do. They cried out to God. And God answered, not with a grand army from the sky, but by raising up Deborah, a woman of fierce faith and clear vision. She was Israel's judge and prophet, and she summoned Barak, commanding him in God's name to gather 10,000 men from Naphtali and Zebulun to face Sisera. Barak hesitated. If you will go with me, I will go, but if you will not go with me, I will not go. Deborah agreed, but she delivered a prophecy that must have puzzled them both. Very well, I will go with you, but the honor will not be yours, for the Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman. No one could have guessed how literally and unexpectedly those words would come true. The battlefield was a scene of chaos and ruin. Sisera's mighty iron chariots, symbols of terror and power, lay stuck in the mud, helpless against the sudden storm and the swift hand of God. With his army shattered and his men scattered, Sisera fled on foot, his breath ragged, heart pounding like thunder in his chest. Dust clung to his skin, sweat mixed with grime as he ran blindly through rocky hills, every shadow threatening to be his doom. Then, through the twilight haze, a small tent appeared, modest, quiet, and oddly inviting. It belonged to Jael, wife of Heber the Kenite, a woman from a family at peace with his enemies. Hope flickered in Sisera's eyes. Could this be his sanctuary, a moment of safety from the relentless chase? Jael stepped out to greet him. Her voice was calm, almost soothing, yet beneath it lay a steely resolve. "Come in, my lord, don't be afraid," she said, welcoming him as if he were an honored guest, though her mind churned with a secret plan. Inside the tent, the air was thick with tension and the faint scent of livestock and leather. Sisera sank down trembling, grateful for the reprieve. He asked for water. Jael handed him cool milk from a goatskin, simple, nurturing, disarming. "Stand guard at the entrance," Sisera whispered hoarsely, eyes half closed with exhaustion. "If anyone comes, say no one is here." Sleep took him swiftly, his chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. But Jael's eyes never closed. Her hands were steady, her heart unyielding. The moment of reckoning was near. The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the distant sounds of battle fading into the darkness. Inside the modest tent, Sisera lay in a deep, exhausted sleep, unaware that his fate was being sealed. Jael stood over him, her breath steady despite the pounding of her heart. In her hands, she held no weapon of war, only a rough wooden tent peg and a hammer, tools of everyday life. But tonight, these simple implements would wield unimaginable power. Every second stretched like an eternity as she raised the hammer high, her eyes locked on Sisera's vulnerable temple, the faint moonlight casting shadows on his face. Then, with a swift, determined strike, she drove the peg deep, piercing through skin and bone, through flesh and bone, embedding it firmly in the earth beneath. The echo of the hammer's blow seemed to shake the very air. Sisera gasped once, a final shudder, and then silence. His reign of terror was over. No clash of swords, no battle cry, just the quiet, unstoppable courage of a woman who refused to be invisible. When Barak arrived moments later, breathless and armed with hope, Jael met him at the tent flap. Her voice was calm but carried the weight of the moment. "Come, I will show you the man you are searching for." Inside, the fallen commander lay still, defeated not by armies but by a single, fearless act. God's promise had been fulfilled in the most unexpected way. Jael's story reminds us that true courage often comes from the most unlikely places, not from strength or power, but from conviction and a willingness to act when it matters most. In life, fear often whispers, urging us to stay silent, to wait for someone else to step up. But sometimes, the smallest voice, the quietest action, changes everything. Who are the Jaels in your life? And more importantly, who are you willing to be? The battle might not look like a battlefield. The weapons might not be swords or shields, but the courage to do what's right, even when it's difficult, is what shapes destinies. If this story spoke to you, and you want to discover more timeless truths from ancient tales, make sure to subscribe to Holy Tales. Join our community, and together, let's uncover the courage, hope, and wisdom hidden in these stories. Thank you for watching, and until next time, may your own story be one of faith and boldness.